My wife is the city's swimming champion. When both her unforgettable first love and I fell into the water, she didn't hesitate to save him. After pulling him ashore, he looked at me provocatively and said, "Sorry, Zoe is too tired to save. You'll have to figure out how to get out on your own." I struggled in the water as my wife Zoe looked at me with disdain. "You must have pushed Anthony. Otherwise, how could he have fallen into the water?" I ran out of strength and began to sink. Zoe, however, panicked. "Help, help." Anthony and I shouted for help loudly, but my wife didn't even glance at me. She dove into the water and swam straight toward Anthony as though I didn't exist. "Anthony, are you okay?" she asked, checking on him. I watched Zoe's back, trying to call for help, but the river water surged into my mouth and nose, choking me. The icy water engulfed me, and I could only stare in despair as Zoe saved Anthony and brought him safely to shore. Anthony looked at me with a smug gaze. "Sorry, Zoe is too tired to save you. You'll have to figure it out yourself," he repeated. I wanted to speak, but couldn't get a word out. Slowly, I sank until a swimmer spotted me and dragged me to shore. I coughed up water like a dying fish. Meanwhile, Zoe was drying Anthony's head with a towel, not even glancing in my direction. Only after she finished did she look at me with scorn. "You must have pushed Anthony. Otherwise, how else could he have fallen into the water? Don't you know Anthony is afraid of water? Why would you do such a disgusting thing?" Anthony stepped in. "It's okay, Zoe. Don't be mad. I don't think William did it on purpose. But you just felt uncomfortable because I was too close to you. That was always how it went. Just a few words from Anthony were enough to destroy me, no matter the situation." Zoe always believed Anthony's slander and provocations over me just because he was her unforgettable high school love. "William, you're disgusting. Should have drowned just now." "Oh, you're uncomfortable. So you want to kill someone?" If I hadn't been there today, the consequences would have been unimaginable. I was too weak from the struggle. In the water to even speak, onlookers stared at us like they were watching a comedy. As always, I should have defended myself when Anthony accused me. If Zoe didn't believe me, I would have just lowered my head, admitted fault, and apologized to them both like I always did. But while I was drowning, I suddenly understood something. Nothing matters except life and death. Having already brushed against death, why should I care if she divorces me or fights with me? You two really are a perfect match. One lies, the other blindly believes. I struggled to sit up and looked at them. Zoe's face turned cold. "William, what do you mean? You're still doubting us? I've told you we're just friends. Why do you keep stirring up trouble? Think about it yourself." And with that, Zoe took Anthony and headed back to the hotel, leaving me alone by the river. In 3 years of marriage, I've heard that same line countless times. Every time I refused to tolerate her and Anthony, or when I couldn't accept her choices, she'd say that and walk away. And every single time, I'd go running after her apologizing, as if I were the one in the wrong. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was. A wife who can ignore my life isn't worth holding on to, because I was in the cold river for too long. I developed a high fever the next day and stayed in the hotel the entire day. The fever was intense, and since I was in an unfamiliar city with only Zoe and Anthony, there was no one to care for me. After thinking for a while, I reluctantly called Zoe. As soon as the call connected, loud DJ music blasted through the phone. It was obvious they were in a club. Zoe's annoyed voice came through. "William, why are you calling? Don't you?" "No, we have our own things to do." I swallowed my anger and asked gently, "Zoe, I'm sick. Could you please buy me some fever medicine and bring it to me?" Before I could finish, she hung up. Stunned, I couldn't believe she had done it on purpose. Wait. I called again. This time, her voice was even colder. "William, stop bothering me. You're pretending to be sick just so I don't have fun with Anthony, right? Let me tell you, stop making a scene. We're here for work. We're just relaxing. Don't stir up trouble." A flood of harsh words hit my already fevered brain. It took me a few seconds to understand Zoe thought I was faking illness. I collapsed onto the bed again, my vision blurry. Then my phone rang once more. Hope sparked inside. MIT might be Zoe reconsidering. but it was a college friend. "William, I saw your post. You're in the city too. Want to grab dinner?" It took me a second to recognize Jessica's voice, my best friend from college. We had drifted apart after graduation, but her voice felt warm. In a raspy voice, I replied, "Jessica, could you get me some fever medicine? I'll send the address." In less than half an hour, she arrived at my hotel room, pulled myself from bed and opened the door. Jessica stepped in and asked, "I thought your wife was with you. Why isn't she looking after you?" I gave a bitter smile. "She's out partying. We were in the city for one of Zoe's projects. Didn't mind after all, it was her job, but Anthony had insisted on coming, saying he wanted to explore the city. I couldn't let him travel alone with my wife, so I tagged along. Yet Zoe had been cold the entire trip. We didn't even share a room. She kept bossing me around." Jessica fell silent. After giving me the medicine, she went downstairs to buy fever patches. Unfortunately, on her way back, she ran into Zoe and Anthony. Since I'd given Jessica my room card for convenience, Zoe assumed the worst. With a look like she'd caught me red-handed, she burst into the room and started accusing Jessica on the spot. "I've told you many times, M. Williams' college friend. Believe it or not, what's a college friend doing in Williams' room in the middle of the night? You're nothing but a shameless mistress." Jessica, always direct, was ready to confront her. "Jessica, wait a second." I stood at the door, holding the wall for support, my body swaying. "Zoe, I told you I was sick. Since you wouldn't bring me medicine, I had no choice but to ask my friend. What kind of madness is this now?" I must have looked very weak, because Zoe didn't doubt that I was genuinely ill. Her aggressive tone softened immediately. "Didn't you explain earlier? If you'd made it clear, I would have come back sooner." Jessica rolled her eyes, crossing her arms and staring at Zoe. "Lady, weren't you busy partying with your lover? Even if he told you, would you have believed him? Who are you calling a lover?" "William, I already told you Anthony and I are here for work. Are you going to start spreading rumors now?" I was so feverish I could barely stand. Jessica noticed and quickly applied a fever patch to my forehead. Only then did I regain a bit of clarity. "Rumors, Zoe, tell me which part was false." "I only said you were out clubbing with another man and refused to get me medicine." "Which part was untrue?" Zoe fell silent, glaring daggers at Jessica. "Why are you airing our business in front of outsiders? This outsider just saved my life. And you, since coming back, have you shown the slightest concern for my condition? All you've done is argue." Zoe had no response. Anthony, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward. "Who says Zoe doesn't care about you? We came back within half an hour after your call, didn't we?" Jessica looked at the bags in their hands and scoffed. "I've been to that. Club it closes at 2 a.m. If it didn't, you two would still be there, right?" Zoe and Anthony were silent. I turned to Jessica. "Thank you for today. It's late and it's not safe for you to head back alone. I'll book a room here for you, and you can leave in the morning." Jessica shook her head. "No need. My brother's coming to pick me up. William, take care of yourself and don't let shameless people take advantage of you." She cast a sharp glance at Zoe. Zoe flared up. "Who are you calling shameless?" Jessica calmly replied, "Whoever gets angry is who I'm calling shameless. You dare." Before they could start arguing again, and with several neighbors already peeking out of their rooms, I shouted, "Enough. Da-da-da-da-da. Enough. Zoe, aren't you embarrassed?" With that, I slammed the door, shutting out all the noise. I was bedridden for 3 days. During that time, Zoe and Anthony went out alone every day for work, but I no longer cared. By the 4th day, once I had fully recovered, I decided to help them finish their project survey. The sooner we returned home, the sooner I could deal with Zoe and reassess our marriage. Who would have thought that as I approached the equipment truck, I'd overhear Zoe and Anthony talking? On a whim, I turned on my phone's recorder, thinking I might catch something important. "Should we do?" "This equipment is broken," Zoe said. "This machine costs over $1 million. None of us can afford to replace it." There was a pause, and Anthony added, "Didn't William's family have money?" "Yes, his parents run a business." "Why? Then let's just blame him. No one will know." They stepped out of the truck and were shocked to see me sitting casually in their temporary camping chair. "William, when did you get here?" I curled my lips into a cold smile. "Just now, where were you guys? I didn't see you around." Zoe's expression stiffened, but Anthony stayed calm. "You didn't hear us talking earlier, did you?" I shook my head. "No." They both visibly relaxed. "Zoe," a subtle signal right in front of me. I watched them silently, amused at their attempt to act innocent. Zoe walked over and asked softly if I was feeling better. I laughed inside at their ridiculous performance but still nodded. Much better. Then Zoe chatted with me for a bit before getting to the point. "Honey, Anthony and I have been working since morning. Could you help us with one of the machines? We really need a break." I nodded easily. "Sure. Where's the machine?" Zoe's eyes lit up, and she pointed toward a black van not far away. "It's in the back seat, the blue equipment." I headed over and caught a glimpse of Zoe and Anthony high-fiving out of the corner of my eye. Pretending not to notice, I opened the door and looked inside. "Honey, I don't see the equipment. Isn't it on that seat?" I pretended to keep searching. "Still can't find it. Where exactly?" Her voice grew impatient. "Isn't it right there? How can you not see it?" I quickly nodded. "Oh, here it is. But honey, I can't carry it alone. Can you ask Anthony to help?" Without thinking, she blurted out, "Why are you so useless? Anthony can carry it by himself." Then she realized what she'd said and quickly corrected herself. "Okay, I'll get him." Watched her walk over and whisper something to Anthony. The two of them glanced in my direction. I knew they were plotting something again. Anthony strolled over, mocking me. "Heard you've been working out for years. What was it, just hormone shots? Can't even lift a small piece of gear?" I replied quietly, "I've been sick. My strength hasn't come back yet." I didn't bother arguing with him and followed Anthony to help lift the equipment. There was a sly glint in his eyes. Clearly he was planning something. I held the equipment steadily. I could easily carry two of them on my own. After all, I usually lift weights 2 or 3 times heavier at the gym. But I couldn't reveal that now. Sure enough, after only a few steps, Anthony suddenly said, "William, hold this for a moment. I need to tie my shoelace." "Oh." Without waiting for my response, he let go of the equipment. I quickly called out, "Anthony, hurry up. I can't hold this for long." The more I urged him, the slower he moved, casually telling me not to worry. I pretended to struggle, calling out several more times. Seeing that I hadn't dropped the equipment, Anthony finally realized he couldn't drag it out any longer and stood up reluctantly. Then I said, "I need to tie my shoelace too. Anthony, you hold it now." With that, I let go and crouched down. Anthony, having just stood up from squatting, felt a momentary dizziness. Thinking he could manage it, he didn't pay much attention. In that brief moment of distraction, the equipment slipped from his hands and crashed hard onto the ground. The casing immediately shattered, and the device's main body was covered in cracks, completely unusable. Everyone around was stunned by the sudden turn of events. Zoe, watching from a distance and thinking her plan had succeeded, quickly rushed over. "William, this equipment costs $1 million. Since you broke it, you should pay for it." I calmly pointed at Anthony. It wasn't me. He didn't hold it properly. Anthony, clearly shocked, instinctively denied it. "No, you let go first. I told you I was tying my shoelace and you nodded." Zoe hadn't expected things to play out like this and quickly defended Anthony. You couldn't have waited until Anthony had a better grip before letting go. But Anthony did the exact same thing just now. Said he needed to tie his shoelace and suddenly let go without warning. If I hadn't caught it, I would have been the one in trouble. Anthony's face changed as realization dawned on him. He stared at me with red-rimmed eyes. "William, you did this on purpose. You pretended you couldn't hold it just to frame me. Why would I frame you? Are you suggesting the equipment was already broken and I orchestrated this just to blame you?" I responded, feigning surprise. That would be unbelievably cruel of me. Zoe and Anthony's faces turned pale and green by turns. They opened their mouths to speak, but no explanation came. "I don't care," Zoe snapped. "Even if the equipment is broken, you still bear some responsibility. If there's compensation, It should be shared. I pointed to the nanny van behind us. No need. The dash cam captured everything. I let go only after you nodded. The audio might be unclear, but your body language is recorded. Want to check the footage? As soon as I said that, Anthony's face turned ashen. He crouched down and muttered, $1 million. I can't afford it. Even if I sold myself, I couldn't afford it. Seeing his distress, Zoe's expression softened. William, even if we take a step back, don't you bear some responsibility at all? Even if I took 10,000 steps back, I still don't. Realizing she had no argument, Zoe gave me a fierce look, then turned. To comfort Anthony, who was still crouched down, fine, you two can figure out how to compensate. I have something to do, leaving them behind. I drove straight to the Citibank. After verifying my identity, I was taken to the VIP room. I wasn't there to withdraw money for Anthony in. The contrary, I was there to prevent that from ever happening. Mr. Sue, what would you like to do today? Want to cancel a supplementary card under my name? After getting married, I had given Zoe a supplementary card and transferred all my company dividends to it, telling her to spend freely. Knowing Zoe, she would surely use that card to pay for Anthony's damages. I had to cut off that option. Before she could, certainly. With your membership level, we can process this right away. Once the card was canceled, I booked a flight and returned to Beijing before Zoe and Anthony could realize what I'd done. Flight landed. As expected, my phone was flooded with missed calls, all from Zoe. I slowly returned one of them. As soon as she picked up, she screamed, "William! Did you cancel my card?" "Yes. Is there a problem?" "Why would you cancel it? Didn't you say it was for me to use? That card is marital property. Do you even have the right to cancel it?" Listening to her panicked and angry voice, I chuckled. I had my reasons. Do I need to report to you? Reactivate the supplementary card now? I need to use it. Sorry, that's not going to happen, I replied coolly, clearly to provoke her. William, where are you right now? I just checked your room, you're not there. Are you hiding from me? Is this just remembering? I replied, Oh, I forgot to tell you. I went back to Beijing. Why did you go back? You didn't want me around anyway. Since Anthony's in such a big mess, I thought I'd make things easier by removing myself. Started cursing me furiously on the other end. I calmly picked at my ear, pretending not to hear. Oh, and by the way, come back soon. Let's get a divorce. I dropped the bomb and hung up casually. After returning, I headed straight to the company. I informed the front desk and security. If Zoe came looking for trouble, don't let her in. They should have called the police right away. After that, I went back to our downtown home and had the locks changed. I packed my luggage and booked a month-long trip to Europe. Then I went to my parents' house and brought them along with me. Happily, I left for vacation. Had already arranged for a professional agent to handle all my business matters. Got a new phone number exclusively for business contact if needed. I took out my old SIM card and tucked it into my wallet. Out of sight, out of mind. Since marrying Zoe, I had rarely felt this relaxed. She always pushed me to work harder, constantly. Belittling me, saying I couldn't give her the life she wanted. Fearing her disappointment, I worked like a maniac. As the company's owner, I always arrived earlier and left later than everyone else. For the past 3 years, my nerves had been stretched taut like a string, never once relaxing. As I breathed the damp, unfamiliar air of a quiet European town, I felt both my mind and body begin to unwind. Looking back, I couldn't believe I had survived those years. After a peaceful month-long trip with my parents, I boarded the flight. Back home. My parents had sensed there were problems between Zoe and me perhaps. That's why they didn't ask any questions during the trip. They were old and I didn't want them to worry. I chose to carry this burden alone. Upon returning, I reinserted the old SIM card that had remained unused for a month. As expected, a flood of calls and messages poured in. Zoe had spammed all my social media, but I'd already blocked her everywhere, which gave me some peace. I didn't even bother reading the hundreds of messages. I just called her directly. When are we getting divorced? On the other end came Zoe's hysterical voice. William, where have you been this whole month? Do you know Anthony took out a high-interest loan to pay the damages and is now being chased by loan sharks? How can you be so heartless? Wonderful news. Unfortunately, I had been completely cut off while overseas and didn't hear about it in time. I contacted a mutual friend to get the full story. After I canceled Zoe's supplementary card and went abroad, Anthony lost control. He shouted at Zoe, "Didn't you say you could cover it? Now what?" "I can't pay it back," Zoe, trying to stay calm, told him. "It's okay. I'll go to Beijing and ask William for the money myself." When she got to my house, she found out I wasn't just out. I had left the country and changed the locks. Desperate, Zoe went to my company and made a scene, but no matter how loud she got, the receptionist never let her in. She then thought she could appeal to my parents, but she soon learned I had taken them with me too. She completely broke down. She had some savings, around 300,000 yuan, and borrowed more from acquaintances. But my friends not only refused to lend her money, they also scolded her harshly. She then turned to her colleagues and scraped together just another 100,000 yuan still, short by 600,000. The lab that owned the damaged equipment pressed Anthony for full payment. Backed into a corner, he borrowed 600,000 yuan from local loan sharks, agreeing to repay 700,000 within 1 month. Where he got the confidence to do that, I don't know. Maybe he thought Zoe could still get money out of me. A month passed, and the debt collectors caused chaos at Anthony's company. He was fired. He went into hiding, but they found him, beat him, and sent him to the hospital. The loan sharks started calling everyone around Anthony. He had no one left except Zoe, who stayed by his side at the hospital. After hearing all this from my friend, I laughed. He warned me, "You need to divorce her ASAP, but I doubt it'll be easy." I calmly told him, "Don't worry, I have proof. If Zoe agrees to divorce peacefully, fine. If not, and she takes it to court, it won't just be a divorce, it'll be a reckoning." As expected, the moment Zoe heard I had returned, she rushed to find me. She looked exhausted from nursing someone else, but walked toward me quickly. "William, where have you been this month? You know how hard it's been for us?" she shouted. "I know." "What does that have to do with me?" I replied coldly. "I'm still your wife." "Can't I use our joint marital funds?" asked angrily. I stared at her and said, "Didn't you receive the divorce agreement? You leave with nothing?" "Why, I didn't cheat," she screamed. I sneered, then played an audio recording from my phone. "It's not just about cheating. I have reason to believe you married me with ulterior motives. You're making things up," she said, but quickly fell silent as she heard her own voice in the recording. "What do we do? This equipment is broken." Then Anthony's voice, "It costs over 1 million. If we break it, neither of us can afford it." Their conversation played clearly, echoing in the room. Zoe muttered, stunned, "You knew? You knew everything?" "So what if I did?" I answered. Zoe's expression twisted with malice. She stared at me and snapped, "So you called Anthony? Over just to frame him?" I frowned. "Wrong. Anthony tried to frame me and ended up destroying himself, the one who was nearly trapped. I just avoided your scheme. Everything that's happened to you and Anthony you both deserve it." Then I leaned closer and said flatly, "And if you don't agree to the divorce, I'll take this recording to the police. You and Anthony might end up in prison." Hearing that, Zoe finally showed fear. Her proud expression collapsed. She lowered her head. "William, you're something else. After 3 years of marriage, do you feel no pity at all for people like you? It's not worth it," I replied coldly. When I saw Zoe sign the divorce agreement, immediately sent it to my lawyer and scheduled the official process for a month later. There's a mandatory 1-month cooling-off period for divorces now, but I knew I wouldn't regret it. That entire incident had already revealed Zoe's true nature to me and helped me realize that 3 years of love weren't worth holding on to. That's why I was able to walk away so decisively. Otherwise, I might have still been stuck in her manipulation, unable to escape. A few days later, we had a class reunion, which I attended. My classmates all knew about the divorce, but none of them tried to talk me out of it. Only Jessica patted my shoulder. "That night at the hotel, I really wanted to tell you to divorce her," she said. "But thinking about how hard you chased Zoe in college, I was afraid you'd regret it once you calmed down. I laughed. I had really poor judgment back in college. I used to fall headfirst for anyone I liked. Feeling awkward, I added, Jessica, I just got out of a marriage. I'm really not ready to start anything new. She raised her hand, unfazed. Who's asking you to start now? There's plenty of time in the future. She gave me a bright smile. I smiled back. Yeah, there's plenty of time in the future. A month later, the day Zoe and I scheduled to finalize the divorce arrived. She showed up looking carefully dressed. I couldn't tell if it was to celebrate the divorce or to make me regret it. Either way, no matter how good she looked, I didn't care anymore. Let's go finalize the paperwork, I said. Wait, William, she said. You know, once we walk in, there's no turning back. I nodded indifferently. What was there to regret? Seeing my attitude, Zoe bit her lip and stepped closer. But I regret it. Don't you want to give our marriage another chance? I pushed her away without hesitation. Just touching her made me feel disgusted. Zoe, we both know the truth. Even if we tried again, there would always be a crack between us. Not you've cheated. You've already crossed my bottom line. We're never going back. After I finished speaking, Zoe's expression turned cold, as if she'd finally given up. William, you're really something. What I didn't notice was her subtle signal to someone behind a nearby car. Zoe and I walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau together. I remembered the last time I had been there, full of hope and excitement. About married life. But now I realized that life had only existed in my imagination. It's not with Zoe. The process was faster than expected. Holding the divorce certificate, I finally exhaled. It was over. Zoe noticed my relief and her face turned ugly. What? Divorcing me makes you that happy? I laughed twice. Sorry you caught me. And since she noticed, I didn't bother pretending anymore. After we left the bureau, I headed to my car, ready to open the door. Zoe suddenly walked up to me. Even though we were divorced, it was peaceful. Can you give me a ride? I didn't even glance at her. Sorry, not convenient. I have to pick someone up. Jessica had just come to Beijing for a work trip, and we planned to have dinner. I was replying to her message. Zoe peeked at my phone, instantly irritated. Chatting with a woman, huh? You really moved on the moment we divorced? Trying to guilt-trip me again? I sneered. Better than you doing it before we were divorced, you? I kept chatting with Jessica, unaware that Zoe had quietly slipped away. Suddenly, I heard Anthony's voice from behind me. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be in this mess. This is all your fault. Let's die together. I didn't even have time to react. When I looked up, Anthony had already lunged at me with a knife. I dodged the fatal strike, but it still stabbed into my chest. It felt like every ounce of strength left my body. I watched the blood pour out. There weren't many people on that road. Anthony realized what he had done and fled. The Civil Affairs Bureau staff rushed out, saw me lying in a pool of blood, and screamed before calling an ambulance. When I was being carried in, I was barely conscious. I grabbed the doctor's hand and shouted, "The attacker is Anthony. Zoe is his accomplice." I don't know if the doctor heard me. I passed out after that. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. My chest throbbed painfully. Even the slightest movement felt like tearing. I shifted my eyes and saw Jessica beside me, fast asleep, holding my hand. I gently moved my fingers. She immediately woke up, eyes bright with surprise. "You're awake. I'll go call the doctor." Jessica brought the doctor, who gave a brief explanation of my condition. Anthony had aimed for my heart, but I dodged just enough to avoid a fatal wound. Even so, I had lost a lot of blood, and it was very weak. The fresh wound meant I had to remain in bed for some time. But I didn't care about that. What I really wanted to know was whether Anthony and Zoe had been caught. After the ambulance arrived, a Civil Affairs Bureau employee had called the police and followed me to the hospital. Since I was unconscious, the doctor repeated what I'd said before passing out. Combined with the surveillance footage from the scene, Zoe and Anthony were quickly identified. Zoe was arrested that same day, but Anthony had vanished. The police found damning evidence on Zoe's phone showing she conspired to harm me, proving her involvement. Now, the police were conducting a citywide search for Anthony. I nodded to show I understood. I never imagined Anthony would actually dare to stab me in public. It was clear he was willing to risk everything. I had dodged the vital area. Had he succeeded, the consequences would have been tragic. Zoe's parents came to the hospital bringing fruit, trying to plead with me. Even though I had been their son-in-law for 3 years, I still remembered how they once tried to take advantage of me financially. Zoe's mother sat by my bed and glanced at Jessica, who was quietly peeling an apple. Could the nurse step out? We have something to say? Auntie, you can speak freely. This is my girlfriend. Jessica's eyes sparkled as she looked at me. I gave her a small nod. Zoe's mother looked displeased. So, you found a girlfriend right after divorcing Zoe? Were you seeing her? Before the divorce? Stop. I don't owe you any explanations about my loyalty. But Zoe conspiring to murder me, that's not something you can just brush off. Zoe's mother looked embarrassed and said, I came to persuade you. After all, you and Zoe were married for 3 years. Can't you let this go as a minor issue? A minor issue? I frowned. I was stabbed and nearly died. If someone had done that to Zoe, how would you feel? Zoe's mother stubbornly replied, But you didn't die, did you? Looking at her face so similar to Zoe's, I felt nothing but disgust. Rest assured, if I had died, your daughter wouldn't still be alive either. Attempted murder carries the death penalty. Maybe Zoe was led astray by Anthony. You know, she's not like that. Hearing the same tired excuse again, I was losing patience. Jessica had also had enough. She stood up and moved to usher them out. The patient needs to rest. If you're done, please leave. Otherwise, I'll call security. You little girl, you, before Zoe's mother could finish. Jessica had already pushed them out, leaving the room in silence. She sat back. Down beside me? Were you serious just now? I feigned confusion. About what? About me being your girlfriend. I pulled the blanket over myself and replied calmly, I don't say things I don't mean. When I say something, it reflects what I truly feel. A week later, Anthony was caught on a boat trying to flee the country. He had planned to escape abroad, but was intercepted during a smuggling crackdown. In court, both Anthony and Zoe blamed each other. Each claimed the other was the mastermind and that they were just the victim. But the evidence made it clear the plan to harm me had come from Anthony. With solid proof, the court sentenced Anthony to life in prison for attempted murder. Zoe, as his accomplice, received 10 years. Zoe's parents spent all their money and called in every favor they could to reduce her sentence, but it was useless. They all received exactly the punishment they deserved.